Ever wondered why no matter how hard you work, your money seems to vanish faster than it arrives? Why the price of bread, fuel, and rent keeps climbing while your savings shrink every year? Yes, the truth they don't want you to hear, it's not just inflation. It's deliberate. The rand is being weaponized, manipulated by banks and the ultra-rich to keep South Africans poor. And the worst part, most of the people cheering for free markets are cheering against themselves. South Africa's financial system isn't broken by accident. The rand, our national currency, is not just a medium of exchange, it's a tool for power. And the people who control it, commercial banks, multinational corporations, and right-wing capitalists, have mastered the art of keeping it weak when it serves their interest, and strong when it helps them extract more wealth. Look at the facts. The rand has been one of the most volatile currencies in the world for decades. In 2020 alone, during the COVID crisis, it fell from roughly 14 ZAR to 18 ZAR against the dollar in a matter of months. That's a 28% decline in value. But who pays the cost? Ordinary South Africans. Your rent doesn't adjust downward. Your groceries don't get cheaper. Imported goods skyrocket in price. Meanwhile, banks and corporations see a chance to hedge, speculate, and profit, often legally. How does this happen? Through a mechanism most people don't even notice: foreign exchange trading. South Africa's banks dominate the forex market, moving billions in and out of the country every day. They don't do this to stabilize the economy, they do it to profit. When the rand falls, exporters benefit, importers lose. But the critical point is who pays the pain: working-class households. Every time the rand weakens, ordinary people's buying power is eroded. Yet the narrative pushed by right-wing capitalists is that this is market efficiency, a natural phenomenon. In reality, it's engineered instability, optimized for profit. And it's not just short-term trading. South African banks and wealthy investors are part of a global system that treats developing economies like casinos. Bonds issued by the South African government, for instance, are bought and sold by foreign funds in ways that manipulate the local interest rates. When the rand weakens, South Africa has to pay more in interest on its debt. Who ultimately foots the bill? Citizens. Who benefits? International investors and local financial elites who can play the market. Consider the role of derivatives and complex financial products. Banks create instruments tied to the rand's value, allowing investors to bet on its rise or fall. These are not tools for economic growth, they are tools for speculation. And the more people bet, the more volatile the currency becomes. Volatility isn't a bug, it's a feature. It creates crises where ordinary people suffer, but banks and hedge funds can profit both when the rand falls and when it rises. Meanwhile, local capitalists and right-wing financiers loudly advocate for free markets and sound monetary policy, while secretly lobbying for policies that weaken the rand on purpose. Tax incentives, deregulation, and subsidies for export-heavy industries are sold as national progress, but they primarily enrich corporations. Look at South Africa's mining sector. Gold and platinum exports rise when the rand falls, creating massive windfalls for companies. Workers, however, see their wages eroded in real terms because the cost of living rises faster than salaries. This is a structural transfer of wealth from the many to the few. Another key tool is interest rate manipulation. The South African Reserve Bank sets rates to manage inflation, but banks and wealthy investors have a direct influence over these decisions. Higher rates attract foreign capital, strengthening the rand temporarily, but they also slow down domestic economic growth, making loans more expensive for small businesses and homeowners. Lower rates can encourage lending, but often benefit large corporations first. Meanwhile, households struggle to keep up with the cost of borrowing and living. The system is rigged in subtle, almost invisible ways. Foreign investment flows are another lever. When the rand falls, it triggers panic selling of South African assets. Wealthy investors and multinational banks anticipate this and exit the market at the right time, pocketing profits while ordinary South Africans see their pensions and savings shrink. This is not accidental, it's systemic. Every spike or drop in the rand is a chance for the already rich to consolidate wealth, while the working class experiences an economic squeeze. Take one glaring example: the 2015 to 2016 rand crisis. The currency plunged more than 20% against the dollar in months, coinciding with political instability and declining commodity prices. While right-wing pundits blamed government mismanagement and socialist policies, the real beneficiaries were financial institutions and export-heavy corporations. Hedge funds made billions betting on the rand's fall. Ordinary citizens, meanwhile, face skyrocketing food and fuel prices, effectively a hidden tax on survival. And let's not forget inflation. The weakening rand directly drives up import costs, which translates to higher prices for basic goods. South Africans pay more for petrol, electricity, medical supplies, and even school books. Banks benefit indirectly because interest on loans becomes more profitable in nominal terms. But for the average person, the economic environment becomes harsher, more precarious, and less predictable. The system is designed to create dependency. The richer get richer, the poor stay poor, and the banks profit from every fluctuation. Housing is another example. Mortgage rates are tied to both the prime rate and inflation expectations. When the rand weakens and inflation rises, banks adjust lending rates. The wealthy can hedge this risk with diversified assets, but ordinary South Africans are trapped. Suddenly, the dream of homeownership becomes more distant, while the financial sector continues to collect interest on increasingly unaffordable loans. What about government policy? Here's where the picture gets even darker. Right-wing capitalists push for privatization and liberalization, arguing it strengthens the economy. In practice, it often opens the door for financial engineering that exploits the rand's volatility. Public services that could buffer citizens from the effects of a weakening currency, like affordable energy, healthcare, and transportation, are sold off or underfunded. Banks step in with consumer credit products, and the cycle of dependency intensifies. Even pension funds are not immune. Many South African pension funds are heavily invested in rand-denominated assets that are subject to foreign speculation. When the rand falls, pensioners' futures are jeopardized. This is not incidental, it's structural. Wealth extraction occurs across every layer of society. Wages, savings, pensions, and purchasing power are eroded systematically, while banks and financiers profit. Then there's the narrative warfare. Right-wing commentators and capitalist think tanks insist that rand volatility is a necessary cost for economic freedom. They paint social protections and regulation as anti-market. Meanwhile, every fluctuation in the currency is a transfer of wealth from ordinary South Africans to financial elites. This ideological framing hides the mechanisms of extraction behind a veil of economic orthodoxy. Foreign debt is another tool of control. South Africa borrows in foreign currency to fund development or fiscal deficits. When the rand weakens, the cost of repaying that debt rises dramatically. Governments are forced to cut spending on social services, infrastructure, or subsidies. Citizens pay the ultimate price, while banks and international creditors profit from interest payments. Weak currency, high debt, and social cuts are not accidents, they are predictable consequences of a system designed for extraction. Even commodity dependence plays a role. South Africa exports raw materials priced in dollars. When the rand falls, mining companies earn more in local terms. They pocket the profits, but the broader economy suffers because imports become more expensive, inflation rises, and wages stagnate. Banks act as intermediaries, lending to companies while profiting from currency fluctuations, creating a cycle that perpetuates inequality. Consider speculation in the bond market. Large financial institutions buy South African government bonds, pushing yields up or down to benefit their positions. These manipulations affect the interest rates on domestic loans, mortgages, and corporate credit. Citizens are essentially paying a hidden tax to facilitate profit-making for elite investors. And what about the psychological impact? Currency instability creates fear. People hesitate to spend or invest. Small businesses struggle to plan for the future. Banks benefit because fear drives demand for credit and financial products. The cycle is both economic and psychological, reinforcing dependency and consolidating wealth at the top. Finally, let's talk about solutions, or rather, the lack of incentives for change. Right-wing capitalists and bankers benefit from the status quo. They lobby against capital controls, financial regulation, or currency stabilization mechanisms. The system works exactly as designed. The rand remains a tool of extraction, and ordinary South Africans are forced to navigate an economy rigged against them. The story of the rand is the story of South Africa's hidden economic war, a battle fought not with bullets, but with currency, interest rates, and speculation. Every price increase, every interest hike, every volatile swing is a symptom of a system that prioritizes profit over people. And while pundits argue endlessly about market forces, the truth is clear: it's not random. It's engineered. And the engineers: banks, multinational corporations, and right-wing capitalists, thriving on the misery of a population kept economically powerless. So next time the rent drops, or your groceries cost more than they should, remember, this isn't bad luck. It's a deliberate, systemic transfer of wealth. And the more people cheer for the free markets without understanding how they function in practice, the more the cycle continues. South Africans aren't just losing money, they're losing power, security, and the possibility of a fair economic future. And that, above all, is the true cost of a manipulated currency.